to just sit there and hold her and know that we had done all of this to bring her here, it was awesome. It was very empowering. I was super proud of myself, which I can't say a whole lot because I can be pretty hard on myself. But yeah, it was a great moment.
Hello and welcome to Healing Trauma Mamas. I'm your host, Madon Wingo. Thank you for joining us as we share in our stories and experiences of healing from childhood traumas and birth traumas. Listen as we discuss our struggles, our failures, our strengths and our victories, and all those lessons we've learned along the way. Why, hello, Healing Trauma Mamas. Welcome back to the podcast today. I'm really excited about our guest today. I love her journey, her story. I know she has some amazing things to share, and I've been waiting for this podcast episode for quite some time, almost a year it feels like. And so I'm really excited to introduce you to Caitlin. Caitlin, do you mind coming on and saying a few things about yourself?
My name is Caitlin. I'm a mom to 2 boys and a 9-month-old little girl. I live in West Texas, and that's about it.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I've really been looking forward to this conversation, and I think that you have a lot of things to share. So I thought maybe, unless you have a different starting point, I thought you might just want to you can start with your journey as a mom, or if you want to start with your childhood a little bit, you jump in where you think.
I grew up with 2 older brothers and an older sister. We were all fairly close. There's a big age gap between us all, I guess. But regardless of that, we were all still pretty close as siblings. I grew up in the country, and my mom has always been a more health conscious type of person. And that's kind of what jump-started me wanting to be more health conscious and everything. I wasn't a very social person growing up. I've always been kind of a homebody, stuck to myself and everything. I don't know. I don't talk about myself much.
That's okay. Thank you for sharing. That's nice to kind of set up kind of your mindset. So when you came into motherhood the first time, do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey?
Well, it was a little unexpected, I guess. I had been married for a year. I was only 20 when we found out that I was expecting a little boy. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, that kind of even more jump-started my health journey and wanting to make sure that I did everything as healthy and clean as possible for my child. And then kind of heard about home birth and everything, and hospital settings kind of have always made me nervous. And so I wanted to do everything as natural as possible. And I found out that I could have a home birth. But my husband did not feel comfortable with it. So our first was with a midwife, but in a hospital setting. For the majority of the appointments with the midwife, she was super great. She was almost like a grandmother. She was super friendly, helpful of everything. And then birth came along and it kind of flipped. She was there when I arrived, but didn't stay for the whole labor. It progressed very slowly, and she ended up going home. And then I was not progressing to her liking as quick as she would like me to. So she called at around 2 a.m, probably, and essentially threatened, that if I did not take Pitocin or do whatever else she had wanted for me to progress further along for her, she was going to have the on-call doctor come in and perform, basically have me do a C-section. So that was very stressful. I ended up going ahead and doing Pitocin, and that made everything so much more painful,
Oh, yeah.
so much more stressful. Uh, Finally, after getting to the point where she wanted me to be in labor, she showed up to the hospital and started prepping for birth. Uh, he came fairly quickly after active labor started. Super healthy, no problems with him, minor tears, and she stitched me up and everything. We stayed in the hospital, and they wanted to keep him for an extra 3 days or so, but wanted to discharge me and just have me stay close by.
Why did they want to keep him?
They didn't have a reason, really. He had no birth defects. There was nothing wrong with him. He was super healthy. He didn't
He
even
wasn't in the
have
NICU?
jaundice. He didn't even
Were
have
you
any jaundice.
GBS
Nothing at all.
positive?
Nope, not with any of my
Oh,
births. Uh,
wow.
I was not sure why they wanted to keep him, but I wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law is actually, she's not a child nurse or anything, but she is a nurse, and she did not feel comfortable with it either. And she's the one who actually told me about the form that you can sign against the AMA form.
AMA, yeah.
And they said that I could do that, but they would call CPS on me if I brought him home. So we went ahead and signed the form and brought him home. We 45-minute drive home from where we gave birth to him. And we had a CPS visit within a week. She came by. She was thankfully, she was very nice. Had no problems. She said that she was shocked that they had even called CPS on us, didn't understand why either. And she went ahead and closed out our case and never had any more issues with them with that.
Wow, wild. And they never,
But
of course, gave you any reason.
no, they didn't have any reason. They just wanted him to stay at the hospital for another 3 days. They would have a room for me to stay, but they wanted him to be under doctor, but they never had any reason. He never had any health issues for him to need to stay.
Hmm. Well, good job standing up for yourself there.
It was hard.
Yeah.
But yes, I was super glad that my mother-in-law brought up the AMA form because none of the nurses there had brought it up or said anything about it.
Yeah. And that's probably like one of, mom and dad's like worst nightmares, like CPS being called on them,
Yes,
So I'm
it was very
sure,
nerve-wracking.
yeah, I can't imagine. That's never happened to me. So I don't know what that's like, but I can imagine that it is like extremely nerve-wracking and just, I mean, probably scary, but also like I would have been very anxious, wanting to know what's
Yes,
going on. Yeah.
I was very nervous, and she was super nice, thankfully. My husband had to be at work, so my dad actually took off work to be there with me, thankfully.
Oh, good.
I think I would have had a nervous breakdown if my if I was alone, but he was there and he was very helpful, and she had asked him questions and stuff and kind of helped the whole situation even more.
Good. Good. I'm glad you're able to have somebody there to advocate or to be an advocate for you. That's great. So when they closed that case pretty quickly.
Yes. As soon as she was leaving, she told me that she didn't see any issues, that he was perfectly healthy and the home was great. So she didn't understand why they would even have called her, especially with him being perfectly healthy, having no issues,
Yeah.
and said that she would take care of the paperwork and that we would not have to worry about it any longer. She would have the case closed out.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's a really hard thing to do, especially a first time mom and you were young to, for
Yeah.
one, sign your baby out AMA and then be ready to fight for that choice. And so I wonder, like, was that the first time that you felt like you really had to stand up and advocate for yourself? I mean, because that was a really strong thing to do. And so I'm wondering if there'd been other instances in your life where you had to stand up like that.
Yeah. Like I said, I grew up a very big homebody. I was actually homeschooled from eighth grade on. I was in public school up until the first month of eighth grade. I was in public school, but then I just had severe anxiety over a lot of stuff for no reason really. Uh, I never had any kind of crazy thing happen to me at school. I just had severe anxiety about like public speaking or just even going in front of the class to make a like short presentation type thing. Um, so I had gotten so anxious about stuff. I was wanting to quit band and wanting to quit my sports, which I really loved band. I really loved volleyball. But my anxiety was so horrible that I essentially begged my parents to homeschool me.
Hmm.
And so they homeschooled me from eighth grade on. And I met Taylor, my husband, on Facebook. I mean, we had mutual friends and everything. My mom knew him from the chiropractic she worked at and his granddad bringing him in there. He was actually one of my father's students, who was a auto tech teacher. So they knew him, but I just met him through Facebook and we never, we were pretty much, a football game was like our first date. We never really
Yeah.
went out in the public much other than that. I was such a homebody. I never had anything where I had to do like standing up for myself that way or uh, where I was worried about something similar to that.
So where do you think that came from in you to just stand up and make a choice that goes
Just,
against the grain?
just the fact that it was my child, I guess. It was like I had to care for. It was my responsibility. Being a mom really changed a lot of things in my life in that regard. I've always been kind of more of an outspoken, hard-headed kind of person, but never to the point where I had to do something like I had to with the CPS and going against all the doctors and nurses' wishes and signing a form to get my child to go home with me.
Hmm.
But I didn't feel comfortable at all leaving my child in a hospital without me being there with him 24/7, not
Yeah.
knowing what they would kind of procedures they would do with them or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, good job. So you really listened to your mothering instincts. So your mama
Yeah.
bear came out.
Yes.
That's awesome. So how did that postpartum go?
It was good. It was fairly easy. I stayed home with him all the time. The first night I had a panic attack, essentially, I think, which you could call a panic attack. I think it was just because I had this tiny little human being in my care that I was responsible for, and I had
Yeah.
never experienced something like that before. I mean, I never really even did any kind of babysitting for, I had a niece, but never any babysitting for her. But I would just sit there and watch him sleep. And I was like, is he breathing right? Is his heart rate good? I was so anxious about everything just being good with him. I actually called my mom at like 2 or 3 in the morning and was like, I'm freaking out. I need you to come over here. I need you to make sure that everything's, I'm doing everything right, that he's right. And she came over, calmed me down, reassured me that everything was good, nothing was wrong, he was fine. And yeah, other than that, we didn't have any issues at all. I'm going to move into a different room. But my healing was fine. I think that she stitched me up incorrectly, maybe because I had some pain that was almost impossible for me to like sit comfortably. I had to actually get a donut to sit on.
Oh,
Um, there was,
do you think you cracked your tailbone or you think it was just from the sutures?
it was the stitches. I could tell for sure she had done something wrong. And I'm not sure if she used the wrong kind of uh, the stitches to put in that weren't dissolving or whatever, but I had to go back to, or when I went back for my couple week after checkup, I think she had to remove the stitches herself because they weren't dissolving. So I'm not sure if it was her error. I don't think she would have admitted if it was her error. um, she was almost kind of a nightmare after the fact. And I'm not sure if it was because we were some of her last clients before retiring.
Okay.
But she was just not very helpful with anything after birth. Uh, so she made some stuff a little more difficult than necessary, I think. But I never had any problems with like postpartum depression or I guess I had postpartum anxiety for sure, but no, nothing else. And it was fairly easy going through the whole thing
Do you feel
besides
like
the
the postpartum anxiety that all the CPS stuff contributed to that, like made it worse? Or do you feel like that was done, that closed, and it was just coming from like, okay, now I'm a mom to this little one and I have to make sure they're alive and fed and taken care of?
I think it was both. I'm sure I would have had postpartum anxiety anyway, just mostly because I was an anxious person as is. Um, and yeah, having, this little tiny, I mean, I never realized how small babies were until I had my own. Just having to care for this little tiny living human being, all on my own with the help of my husband. Um, but I definitely, yeah, the CPS and then how my midwife turned out to end up being.
Mm.
Um,
Do you think she did
definitely,
that at the, well, do you think there was kind of something between you guys because of, for one, how the birth ended up, but also because of the CPS stuff afterwards and then going to her in the postpartum? Do you think that added to it, or do you think it was just something going on between her and you?
I don't know. Because like I said, with the first few appointments, or I mean, majority of the appointments up until birth, she was great. We never had any issues. We kind of saw eye to eye with everything health wise and procedures that I wanted or did not want to have done with my child. The only thing that we hadn't agreed on was I didn't want to do the glucose test
Mm-hmm.
with the horrible drink.
Yeah, the glucola.
And she
Yeah.
essentially, yes, that was not an option to not do that or to have an alternative way of doing the test with her. She was the drink or no way with her.
Mm.
But other than that, she was just like a grandma, really. She was super sweet, super helpful and knowledgeable about a lot of things. And then birth comes, and I think it just wasn't on her time. It was almost like it was inconvenient for her.
Mm.
So I think that contributed to it a lot.
Mm. Yeah, I could see that for sure. Well, so you made it through the postpartum. through your anxieties. And do you think there's ever a point where you finally like thought, okay, I got this thing?
Yeah, it took a little while for sure, but yeah, it just started feeling more natural, I guess, with the help of my mom and my dad. I'm very thankful to have such supportive parents of mine, because they've always been super supportive of anything I've done and super proud of anything I've done, especially regarding motherhood and my children.
That's awesome.
They were super, super helpful with everything. Once he was a couple months old, I felt a whole lot more relaxed with the whole being a mom, having to care for this little newborn little child. And it was a lot less stressful, or not stressful, I guess, but nerve wracking.
Mm.
And it was easier to not worry about every little thing.
Good. I'm glad you had such a great support system there. That's awesome.
Yes, I don't
That's
know what I would
wonderful.
have done without my support system.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tremendous. So, so you kind of got a hold of that and we're working through postpartum motherhood and all of that. So when number two come along?
Well, we actually had started trying when our youngest turned 2, and we got pregnant, but around 8 weeks, we lost the baby. That was very traumatic for me, as is for any mother, I'm sure. We were at home, and I just felt something off.
Yeah.
And when I had gone to the bathroom at one point, you could see red. And so I was freaking out. I actually called my husband and told him, and he immediately left work. Thankfully, his boss was super supportive and was like, go. You need to be there for your wife. We, I don't really trust the hospital that in the city that we live in. So we went over to Stanton, which is just about a 20-minute drive, and went there, and they confirmed that we had a miscarriage. And that was probably one of the most heartbreaking things that we
Yeah.
had been told. Um, we went home and just let it pass naturally. Um, it was very heartbreaking because I mean it wasn't nothing. It wasn't just like a little blood clot or something. You could see little fingers, little toes, um, or maybe that was just me thinking. I don't know. You could see definitely it wasn't just a little embryo or anything.
Yeah. At
So
9 weeks, you definitely can see fingers and toes.
we actually planted it with a Dracania, and it's still in my kitchen. It's huge. It's probably my best thriving plant. um, and then after that, we definitely wanted to hold off for a while. Decided to wait until we were both kind of healed from that.
Yeah.
Um, when our youngest was 3, we ended up becoming pregnant with our now 3-year-old little boy. Um, and the whole first birth and how kind of traumatic the hospital experience was with my first, and with the midwife, and having to be forced to take Pitocin or C-section, and just how big of a nightmare it turned it up to be.
Yeah.
We were for sure going to do a home birth. I was super excited to be able to do a home birth this time. I really wish I could have with my first one, but my husband was just not super comfortable with it. He was very scared of what could happen at home. But I mean, after researching and talking to other women who had done home births and other families, and I have a cousin who did home births. Um, Looked around Big Spring and found a couple midwives, not in Big Spring, but local, and that's where we found Jaquetta, and she was amazing. I loved her. I still love her. She is so awesome and so helpful, the sweetest lady. So supportive of everything.
Yeah.
It was a completely different experience with a different midwife. It was almost like the first one wasn't even a midwife.
Mm,
It's just night and day difference. Never had any issues at all. And we had a wonderful home birth. We used a water bath birthing tub
birthing
with
up.
him.
Hmm.
And that was just almost magical, just how different it was and how amazing and easy. Like it's weird to say easy for birth and pregnancy and stuff, because I know a lot of people think of it as a very scary or painful experience. And I know that for some it is very painful experience, but comparing my second to my first, even my third to my first, is so crazy. I mean, Jaquetta and you were wonderful, made everything so much better. It was just a completely, like, really magical experience compared to my first birth.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it was quick and yeah, I see exactly what you're saying because just from the outside looking, like it looked like it was pretty like amazing for you.
Yes, it was super awesome. It was a little odd to have so much family in the room, I guess, but they were so supportive and just quiet and stayed to their own. Didn't interrupt, which was really good. I was kind of surprised with how well it went with the family being there. But like Taylor, he got the fireplace going and like the lights were off and it was just so nice. And then just everybody to be so supportive of the whole thing. Um, and I think even if I hadn't progressed as quickly as I did with my second, everybody would have been just so much more supportive than my first time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they would have, well, I know nobody would have, tried to force me to do this or that or have to choose from one or the other. It was just, on my own time, doing everything as it comes.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad you had that opportunity.
Me too. I would not change it for the world.
Awesome. Well, how do you feel like that postpartum went? Was it better this time?
Yes, so much better. And anytime I had any kind of concern, it was nice because I had, Jaquetta's personal number. I
Yeah.
didn't, with my first midwife, I didn't have anything like that. You would have to schedule an appointment and talk to them when you get to see them. But with Jaquetta, and you mean I could just send out a text if I had any kind of worries or anything. And almost instantly, within just a couple minutes, I would get a very caring and quick response, with no issues at all. I didn't have any real anxiety or any kind of problems with this postpartum. The healing was so much better. I didn't have to have any stitches this time.
Right.
I didn't have any trauma with this one at all. It was wonderful. Postpartum, birth, pregnancy, everything.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Do you think it kind of, well, in your mind, do you think you kept comparing the two or you were just thankful for this one to be so different?
At times I would compare it, mostly just because I was shocked with how much easier, more relaxing it was than the first one. I mean, we would still have to go the 45-minute drive, because it was the same town that we had, the first midwife, but it was in a home setting and it was, just more relaxed, kind of a slower pace. It wasn't as invasive with all the tests and all the, um, yeah, just as invasive as the tests. The tests were pretty, nerve wracking with our first, and then to just go to just checking on the baby, making sure everything was good without a bunch of crazy invasive things going on. That helped a lot. But um, I didn't necessarily compare it as much as I thought I would, I guess. I think it was
Good.
just because it was so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It probably kind of felt like completely night and day different things that happened. So
Definitely, it was 100%.
yeah. Well, so number three, how did that happen? Or number four, really?
Yeah. It was also planned for the most part. uh, it was this was a 2 year gap. Um, and as soon as we found out, we waited a little bit to tell anybody. Um, we waited a little bit to tell anybody with the second one as well, but we waited until I was really showing and we were past the whole possible miscarriage point,
Yeah.
just because I was so scared with that again. And then I reached out to you first, actually, to try and find a midwife that was in our area because Chiquetta had moved state. Um, and I really loved the midwife that we used, but I kind of almost wish we had gone with the one we ended up doing the birth with. I wish we had gone with her in the first place, kind of, just because we ended up having a breech baby and nothing had really prepared me for that. I never really thought about that being a possibility, thinking about asking when I was doing interviews with the midwives if breech would be a problem, just because it was never a worry
Yeah.
for me. Like, I would ever have a breech baby. So it wasn't something that I had asked our first midwife with this pregnancy. And then we had gone in for the checkup at 27, 20, I think maybe further along. Taylor's so much better with timelines on stuff. I am not good with that stuff. But it was to the point where she was not doing any, we had gone in and gotten one ultrasound, and she was in a good position and everything. And we went into the midwife appointment and she was kind of feeling around and everything. And I told her, I said, I think she could be breech. I said, I'm pretty sure that this is a head here. I said, because she's always in my ribs and it just feels really big compared to like little feet being up in my ribs or anything. And so she was like feeling around and she couldn't really tell. She said that she thinks I'm right, but to send me in for an ultrasound if I was comfortable doing that, just to confirm. So we set up the schedule, or actually I called them and they could get me in right away. So we went and got it checked, and yes, it was a little disheartening. I was very scared just because I hadn't done a whole lot of research or heard a whole lot about breech births or breech babies.
So up to this
And
point, how had your pregnancy been?
great. No issues. I mean, I had heartburn with my pregnancies. I don't know if it was because they all came out with full head of hair. That's what a lot of people said was
That
because
wives' tale.
yes, that's what everybody would tell me, is because they were going to have a full head of hair. They all came with a full head of hair and I had horrible
Well,
heartburn,
sure.
near the end. But other than the heartburn, I never had any, real issues or anything. Everything was great. She was also in Midland. Everybody's in Midland. Nobody is here local.
Yep.
So other than being a little uncomfortable on the drive to Midland because my belly was so big, we never had any issues with the pregnancy. Everything was smooth sailing. And
Good.
she let us do the finger prick for instead of the drink.
Hmm.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
She was very supportive of everything as well. She was very nice. I really liked her. But up until when we found out that my baby was Breech, she was honest with me up front, told me she's not comfortable doing a Breech delivery. So we could do an ECV. I think that's right.
Hmm. Hmm.
We could do that and see if she would hopefully flip. Uh, and I had almost done one. I went in and did an interview with the nurse who assists the doctor in ECV. And as soon as they told me kind of what an ECV was, I was just uncomfortable with it. It
Yeah.
made me have anxiety about it.
So for the
Uh,
listeners, essentially it is just basically repositioning the baby from the outside. So
yes,
taking and flipping the baby, but having to make the baby turn to get their head down all the way. And I've been part of watching one happen, and they do it in the OR usually, just in
yes,
case there's any issue. And they have to put a lot of gel on and everything to try to move well, and they have ultrasound going at the same time, and you're even offered pain medicine
yes,
usually for that time as well. And then they have to, like, I watched this doctor perform one once, and it was a successful one, but she was like sweating, like she was working
yes,
so hard to turn that baby and get the whole body to turn all the way. And so they're pressing on the outside of your belly. Now they can be wonderful. They can be very helpful. If you want to make sure you have a head down baby, again, with everything, there's risks and benefits. And you are obviously big at looking at the risks and the benefits, and
yes.
is it worth it to me? And I know you're a researcher, and so I'm sure like immediately you're like, oh, we gotta figure this out. We gotta research and see what the best
Yeah.
decision to make is.
Yeah, it was a very big pros versus cons type of thing for me. I had actually joined so many Facebook groups about breech babies and was asking for other people's stories and their not opinions, but just how what if they had gone through the same thing and how it turned out for them, if they did an ECV or if they didn't, what their deciding factors were on getting one or not getting one.
Yeah.
Um, One of my mom's coworkers, she had actually had an ECV and it was successful. She recommended one. She said it would not be too bad. The pain was tolerable and everything. I'm a type of person, I don't like taking any kind of medicine unless it's absolutely necessary. I won't even take Tylenol for a headache. Like I don't know why. I just won't, unless it's like excruciating pain. Then I'll finally give in and take, whatever is needed. But the fact that it would be, like you said, in an OR and they'd be monitoring everything, that really scared me. I didn't want anything unnecessary to happen. If we could avoid it, then that was my ideal option. So, yeah, we went in. She told me everything, and she said that they had a high success rate. Didn't have really any issues ever with ECVs, and that if we decided to do one, that they would need to know pretty soon because they'd have to get it scheduled and everything. And so we actually went ahead and let them schedule it. And I told her that, I would still have to think on it. So I would let her know by the next day if we would keep the appointment or not. And after just doing all sorts of research and then giving birth to a breech baby actually scared me less than doing an ECV or
Mm.
having a C-section or anything. I felt way more comfortable giving birth to a breech baby. So then I had reached out to you actually when I found out she was breech, and that's when we decided to just switch providers to to one who was more comfortable with doing a breech birth. And she was very supportive throughout the whole thing. She was honest with me about everything. She
She
didn't
who?
give. Now that
You
I'm
don't
on the
have to say a
interview with
name. No, you don't have to say a name. I'm just clarifying
the,
which person
the,
you're talking about.
the new midwife, who
Gotcha.
was with who we switched from, which actually ended up being in Abilene. So it was a longer drive. And really, the only reason we went with midwife in Midland was because it was a shorter drive and we had the two kids already, and it was just easier
Which makes
to go
sense.
shorter distance. And she was really super nice. We had no issues with her at all. It was just that she wasn't comfortable doing a breech birth, and it made me a little sad to have to switch providers. But I was super comfortable doing it. The new provider was amazing. I mean, she was super knowledgeable and helpful. So were you. Both of you were just so supportive of everything, no matter what my decision was, and upfront with me about everything, that possible complications or anything like that. And it was really empowering to be able to choose not to do an ECV and to just, you know, I went and got adjustments, chiropractic adjustments, and
Right.
we had tried the pulsatia. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The homeopathic remedy, and then Moxie something where you put the candle
Moxibustion.
by. Yes, that
Yeah, I
was.
know you tried everything. It's not like you were
We
just like,
tried
oh, baby's
everything. The
breech, too
spinning
bad.
babies.
Yeah,
We
you tried all the things.
yeah, we tried everything. The spinning babies, the moxibustion, getting adjustments every other day almost. And my chiropractor, he had done that with others, and he had a really good success rate with having babies turn. But she was so stubborn; she didn't want to turn. She was so comfortable where she was, so she just stayed where she was at. She didn't want to move. Nothing I tried worked. So we had the one of our last appointment. Well, it ended up being the last appointment
We
with
didn't know
y'all.
that.
It was it the first
You
appointment?
had your first and your
Yes,
last prenatal
first and
appointment.
last appointment. Yes. Went to Abilene and met y'all. It was so easy. So comfortable. It made me worry even less. I was just, like I said, so much more comfortable giving birth to a breech baby than doing anything else, like
Yeah.
the ECV or anything. And then was it the next day? I think it
Um,
was the next or the same night. It was the same day.
so
I
I think you
texted.
had your initial visit at 2 p.m. and your
Yes,
water broke at 9 p.m.
yes, yes. I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember if it was the same day or the next, but it was the same day. Yeah, I was sitting in my living room, and I had never, with my first one, we had our water break. That's why we went to the hospital so soon. And I mean, my labor progressed so slowly with that one. And with this one, I was going to the bathroom with my first one when my water broke. And I was like, I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if my water just broke or what just happened. Hold on, baby. And with my third one, I was just sitting on my floor, just sitting there. I think I was scrolling on my phone or something. And you could hear the pop. It was so wild. And then just like a gush of liquid. I was like, oh, okay. So I hollered for my husband who was on the other side of the house. I was like, I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure that my water just broke. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
are you? He started kind of freaking out. He's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. So I went ahead and texted y'all, and I wasn't having any labor pains. I wasn't having any contractions or anything really. So that was even, I was so shocked. I was in shock for probably 2 hours or so. And then after a while, I started having some contractions, but they were not painful at all, very sporadic. And so that's when y'all were like, just go to bed. We'll keep our phones on, if it progresses, give us a call. And it kind of halted. Like throughout the night, I would have a pretty painful contraction here and there. But then the next day, it was nothing. There was nothing going on at all. I guess in the morning, I did call you guys and tell you, like, or not call, but text and tell you, they were kind of more on time and everything. But when y'all got there, nothing. It just went to a complete halt. And I was so discouraged because y'all had just driven all the way there. And I was like, really? It's just nothing's going on now. but thankfully y'all were super nice about it, like so understanding. It was crazy. We had done all sorts of things. We had walked up you and me walked up the hill up my road. And before y'all got there, I was walking all over the place trying to get everything, you know, really kickstarted, really going. And it was just at a halt. Nothing was
I
going on.
know. Again, though,
She,
you tried all the things. You were doing all the things and
yes,
nothing. And you were nursing too.
yes, yes. My, at the time, 2 year old, I was bouncing on the ball trying to get it to go even. And I would have him nurse whenever he wanted to. And I was like, maybe this will help. Maybe this will get the contractions going again. And nothing would get the contractions going.
It's true story.
Yes, it was so crazy. Just because my water had broke and I was expecting it to be kind of as quick as with my second.
Right.
And it was.
Yeah.
It just,
We often have those expectations, don't we?
yes.
Yeah. And sometimes those really mentally throw us for a loop. I've had that happen myself too. Just like I just was expecting it to be like the one before that was just so nice and quick and everything was great. And it was
Right.
nothing like it at all. And so in my head, I was thinking like, what in the world, you know? And it was really, really like I had trouble wrapping my mind around it all. So I wonder for you, like how that was.
Yeah. It was definitely a little, just a little discouraging, just
Yeah.
because I was, expecting it to be a whole lot quicker than it was. I didn't like with my first two, even with my first one, it didn't really come to a stop at all. It was just super slow progressing. And then with my second one, it was instant. I mean,
Yeah.
I texted, y'all got there and got everything, like y'all got everything set up with the second one just in time for him to come out in the birthing pool.
I know.
I mean, pretty much as soon as we got into the birthing pool, he came out. He was
Yep.
ready. And then this one for me to, do everything, walking and bouncing and nursing, nothing. She was just content. She didn't want to move. She didn't want to come out yet. She was happy in there. Um, and we had started doing some tinctures, because it was just taking so long. And then I remember I don't remember if it was you or Jennifer asking if I wanted you to do like a cervical check to see how far I was progressing with the dilation. And I was like, it can't hurt. So I really want to know how far I've progressed at this point, to see if, how far along. And I remember
I
y'all
think all of
checking and
us
y'all were like,
at that point, I think all of us are like, what is happening? Like we've tried to give this
yes,
thing time, we've all the things, and we're just like, what is happening? And I think we had earlier suggested maybe a few like more severe, I won't say severe, that's not the right word, but more invasive things to do to try to see if we
right,
could get things going. And I loved how you stood up for yourself and you're like, well, no, I don't want to do those things yet. I want to do,
right,
any natural things that I can do to encourage, but I don't want to do anything beyond that, which was great. But at a certain point, we're just kind of like, we kind of need to know what's going on. Are we having a baby? Are we not having a
right,
baby? Like what
right.
is happening?
Yeah. And when y'all had asked me about the more invasive things, I was a little nervous to actually say no about it. But I mean, I didn't want to do them. And when I, finally told y'all, like, I don't feel comfortable doing it, y'all were so supportive. Y'all were like totally okay with it, which eased my mind so much, just because I was so anxious to turn anything down. Um, and then when y'all checked and I was already all the way. I mean, it was all the way. We were ready. And y'all could feel a little butt, right?
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And that I was glad that we did the cervical check, that we did it to see how far, because that right there kind of kicked me into gear of, okay, my body's ready. She's ready, I think. So maybe we should just, try. So I've never really had a whole lot of contractions at this point. I didn't really feel like pushing or anything, but with knowing that I was so far progressed and that she was like right there, that it just gave me the motivation to like attempt. Maybe we can just push her out.
And I think
So
what's interesting, if you don't mind me putting in a couple things I remember,
no, you're fine.
there. But so after the check, I remember telling you like, "Oh my goodness, you're complete." And you're like, "Oh, does that mean I can push now?" And, and I was
Yes.
like, "Well, do you feel like pushing?" And you're like, "Well, I'd rather wait till I feel like pushing." And I'm like, well, okay then. And so then you were like, well, maybe I should rest for a little bit or something because we're going to be pushing soon. But I know you're so natural minded and really wanting your body to do, its thing and not, not make something happen that you wanted to be like, what normally happens. We normally expect that if you're complete, that as the body labors down, that you're going to get to this point where your body's going to naturally just push the baby out.
Right.
And
That's what
you
I was
thought
hoping for.
yeah, you thought that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to rest a little bit. I'm going to nurse a little bit more and let my until my body decides where it's time to push. But what happened?
That didn't happen.
It did.
It didn't. We tried, I think we tried just several different positions kind of on my bed, off my bed. I was even like on the toilet in my bedroom,
Yeah. And I think you
seeing if
finally,
the positions would help.
yes. And I think you were just trying those out. And I don't think you were pushing yet at all. You were just trying them out to see if that would make you feel like pushing.
Right.
Um, and then at some point, I mean, you can probably say when that was, but at some point you were just like, okay, I'm just gonna push.
Yes. Yes. I had started to get, it was after we had taken the, I don't remember which tincture it was, but I had taken
I don't
it
remember right
just a
now
few
either.
times. And I think that kind of helped with the contractions because I would start having very minor contractions again. Nothing crazy, nothing that made me really feel like I should push or anything. But the pushing or the sensation of her body, I guess, having so much pressure on me down there, I was like, okay, so now it's time. So we got to try to get her out of here. Mostly, I think I was just tired of waiting. I was like, "Come on!
Yeah.
I need to meet you. I need to see who you are. I'm tired of waiting." I
I
remember
think
I
that was
prayed
like the
so
theme of
much.
the day was just like waiting,
Yes,
like all day long. She definitely wanted this to be a completely different experience for you. Not only to
yes,
be breached, but then to like have your water break like that, and then to not really have contractions, and then just keep
yeah,
waiting and waiting, and even to like then like okay, do I push? Do I not push? Do I wait? And to let me say, like she had been perfect like this whole time. Like we had like perfect heart tones. We had like you guys were both just absolutely perfect. There was no issue
yeah.
whatsoever. She just was taking her sweet time and making us all just wait.
Right. And then, I mean, y'all would do the heartbeat checks every so often when I was attempting different positions and stuff to see if that would kind of kickstart my body into wanting to push this little baby out. Nothing ever really helped. The one tincture I think is what kind of helped get a little bit of contractions to come, but nothing crazy. So yeah, it had actually started storming and stuff.
That's
My mom had started
right.
lighting the candles
I
in case the
forgot.
electricity went out. Yeah, and that kind of helped a little for me to relax. I've always kind of liked storms and everything. That was super cool. And then like the candles being going, I was like, okay, so this is it. So we've got to meet this little girl. Um, and I pushed for quite. It felt like forever,
It
and
was
I don't think it was really that long.
it was pretty quick.
Um, yeah, I had tried hovering or laying over the birth ball on the bed, pushing from there, and then getting on the ground because my bed's on the floor. And just I was like, this is it. This is it. I remember pushing, and y'all were like, you can see a little bit of her. Like if you are comfortable continuing to push, I think she will come. So yeah, it was cool. It's like you had asked me while I was still kind of there in the moment. You're like, is it okay to record? I was so glad that you brought that up because it was not even a thought in my mind because we didn't record with the others, but they were just regular, typical run of the mill births. So it was super cool to have that recorded. You could
I
see
agree.
like I loved that I could see everything on the video afterwards because I couldn't see anything in the
Right.
position that I was in. Um, but with you and Jennifer and my mom all right there, kind of explaining, oh, well, here we can see her, just keep pushing if you're comfortable and she's going to come out. So it felt so much different just because I was doing all the pushing on my own, I think.
Yeah. It's so interesting
It
how
was
your body
more
wasn't pushing with
painful.
you.
I know. It was odd because I really had to do all the pushing myself. And I'm very quiet during birth. I have been with all of them. I'll usually kind of hum or something through the contractions. But I'm just really quiet usually. And I had shown my friend the video afterwards, and she's like, "How were you not screaming your head off?" She's like, "How were you so calm?" I was like, "Because I'm in my mind.
Mm.
I'm telling myself, the baby needs to come. She's ready. I'm ready. It's just time to push. Just focus and come get her out of here. Get her into the world." Uh, it was weird because it wasn't any more painful than the other births. I mean, other than having to push on my own, it was
Mhm.
not any more painful. Which I was expecting it to be more painful being a breech birth. Uh, but like y'all were just telling me like, there's her butt. We see her butt, and then here comes her legs, and I could feel her legs plop, come out, and then there she was just dangling there. And so with the majority of her body out, that was like telling me, okay, now, it's finish, get it done. So she just plopped out.
She
It
did.
was, it
She
was
surprised us all.
crazy. I'm surprised she didn't just bounce off of the
She was
floor.
like, "Boop," and I was like, ah,
Yes. Like, oh, catch the baby.
yes.
It was really, it was a really cool experience. I would never really wish to have a breech birth or anything, but
Yeah.
I'm super glad to have had one just to be able to experience it and have such a good experience with it.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I'm so proud of you. Like I just felt like there are like you do your research and you make up your mind about what you want and you stick with it. And I think that
Yes.
is so commendable. Like so you really like advocated for yourself and obviously it's not the first time you had to do that, but it was a big one. It was
Yeah.
definitely a big one to be so certain of what you wanted and it not that you just had just settled for that. You tried and you tried to do things the other way and then you're like, "Okay, that's not happening. So I've made my decision. This is what we're going to do and we're going to find somebody who's going to support me in that." And
Yes.
that's what you did. And I think that was like so awesome. And I want to encourage, anybody listening, like stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself. If you are convicted about something, you can have all your stats and everything to back you up, sure. But the biggest thing is just being certain of what you want and then finding other people that'll support you in that. And
Yes.
that's exactly what you did. And I think it's such a testimony for everyone else out there listening just to stand up, advocate for yourself, and get what you want. Go for it.
Yes. Well, trust your gut. That's always been a big thing for me, especially with having anxiety. That kind of makes me more to trust my intuition, trust my gut, trust what my body and everything is telling me.
Yeah.
Don't go with whatever somebody else is telling you just because it's what they think is best. You know what's best for yourself. You know what's best for your body. Listen to your body. Listen to yourself. It's telling you that for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had this beautiful experience come out of it. And
Yes.
how did you feel after that?
Amazing. I felt empowered to know that I was able to do what I wanted to happen, for it to go so successfully. I mean, I never really worried about any complications or anything, despite, having read pros and cons and have read some not going as well. I never really worried about any of it. I think that was one thing that kind of helped with everything to go so smoothly, is it was never a thought in my head that something was going to go wrong, that there could something could go wrong.
Hmm.
It was just, I had it planned out. This is what I wanted to happen. This is what I believed was going to happen. And yeah, it was, that's what happened. Even if I had to learn some patience with it. She was definitely teaching me to have some patience. But it was so awesome after it was said and done. To just sit there and hold her and know that we had done all of this to bring her here. It was awesome. It was very empowering. I was super proud of myself, which I can't say a whole lot because I can be pretty hard on myself. But yeah, it was a great moment to have gone through everything with it.
Yeah. I'm super proud of you too. It's getting me teary-eyed just thinking about it. Just that's just so awesome. Like to
Yeah,
just,
I couldn't have done
yeah.
it without you and Jennifer. Y'all were really amazing throughout the whole process. It's so supportive. I think if it would have been anybody else, it definitely would not have gone as smoothly as it did.
Mm.
You guys were a big, big factor in it going so smoothly.
Oh, I think we were just so thankful. Everything just worked out, just the timing of all of it. I mean,
Yes,
seriously, I mean, there's nobody could have timed any of that
right.
that way. It just was so perfect. And yeah, we were extremely thankful and thrilled. And yeah, it's so funny when you're like ready, like you've done all the study, we've done all the training and everything. And so you're ready to do like all the maneuvers and anything that you need to do to help, in this abnormal way that this baby's coming into the world, which is not
Right.
abnormal. I mean, but in our world, our society, we think of it that way. So it was so interesting because that's the thing I remember so much. I was like so ready to do all those maneuvers. And there she is.
Yes.
We didn't have to
Yep.
do a thing. She came out on her own when she wanted and exactly, like it was just so, so neat. I will never forget that memory for sure. And I am
Yeah.
so thankful we have the video as well.
Me too. I had gone back and watched that video. I don't know how many times. I even watched it probably, I think like last week or something.
Awesome.
It was just really awesome. And I had watched a ton of videos on the Breech baby website,
Hmm.
Breech Without Borders, I think. I watched, I think, every video that they had on that website before giving birth. And that was really empowering too,
Yeah.
to watch all these other mothers, give birth to these little breech babies who were so stubborn that not want to come out head first or anything.
Yeah. They wanted to come out the other way.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we even shared it with Dr. Stu so he could use your birth here with her as for training. So he could
Yes.
show
I thought that
others
was
like, look,
really
this
awesome
is
too.
normal. This is a great birth, a great breech birth. So I'm
Yes.
thankful that again we had the recording to be able to share that with him for all his
Me
training he
too.
does. Yeah.
Yes. I felt really I thought it was really awesome when you had reached out and asked if y'all could, share it with him. I was like, yes. So that's really awesome to me that somebody would want to do that with my birth. I would be honored to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing. So you get to contribute to so many other women being able to be empowered that, hey, this is
Right.
normal. And because he goes and helps providers be trained in breech in order to be able to give that to women and give them that choice. So I think that's absolutely amazing.
Right.
So do you feel like because you were so empowered in the birth, we can pause a minute if you need.
Well, it's James. Really? That's not necessary.
So do
Um,
you feel like,
Go
wait
ahead.
a second.
Sorry.
No, it's
No,
fine.
you're fine.
So, do you feel like the way in which you were so empowered in that birth and the way in which you were so proud of yourself for standing up and having the birth that you wanted and finding the provider that you wanted, do you feel then that helped your postpartum period?
I'm sorry. Could you ask one more time? Both my kids just came in and they were
Uh, do, do you feel like the way in which you were so empowered and proud of yourself for the way the birth went and being able to stand up for yourself, do you think that changed how you felt going into the postpartum?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it helped being a mom of two already,
Yeah,
but just with everything, I don't know if I could say going I mean, it went so smoothly. It just not necessarily in the time that we had expected.
right.
Um, yeah, it helped a whole lot. And then I had so many people tell me that breech babies are so much, more headstrong and stuff like that, which is why they stay breech and everything. That helped a lot. I really didn't have any issues at all with this postpartum.
That's
It
awesome.
was it was a breeze.
That's great.
And
Ah,
I definitely think how empowered I felt afterwards and just proud of myself and everything. It definitely helped.
awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
No, just trust your gut. Definitely. Don't freak out about the little details. Do your research, weigh out the pros and cons, do what feels more comfortable for you. If you trust having a procedure done, then go for it because it's successful for a whole lot of people. I met a lot of women who over like Facebook and stuff who had done ECVs and they were wonderful. They helped and they had no issues with it. And it's what they felt comfortable doing. And then I had met a lot of women who didn't do the ECV because it wasn't something that they were comfortable with either. And they had no issues with theirs either.
So, yeah,
So I think definitely just trust your gut, trust your instincts.
yeah, for sure. Stand up for yourself and get what you want. Thank you for listening. May you be encouraged and strengthened by what you've heard today. Remember, you are dearly loved by your Creator, so be who He created you to be. May you go in peace, friends. Till next time, Shalom.